What's good, Maryville? Welcome back to the Droppin Dimes podcast, the long-awaited hiatus of the Droppin Dimes podcast. I don't think we've recorded anything in nearly 2 months.
Whoa.
I'm Noah Cooper, joined by Perry Randle, as we're about to record a podcast for the first time in 2 months. How's the 2-month break feeling, Perry?
Man, I missed it, to be honest, man. I'm so glad to be back. We've been gone for a minute, man.
I know we have. I think we waited. I don't think we recorded anything over finals week in December. And then, obviously, we had winter break that lasted about a month. Couldn't record anything last week because of some issues that, went down some places that you were going. So, but we'll get that to a little bit. But I think let's hop in right to the NBA action right now. A lot of stuff went down over December and over January since we've been gone. But I think most notably the most important thing that has happened that everyone's been talking about recently is James Harden going on an absolute tear. It's like the Droppin Dimes podcast went off air, and he's been doing everything in his possible willpower to lead the Rockets right now to the 5th seed in the Western Conference, putting up scoring numbers that we haven't seen in years, at least since 06-07 Kobe, and the numbers that he's been putting up since we've been gone are pretty staggering. I looked it up. If you average out the numbers since we went off air for the Droppin Dimes podcast, he's been averaging 43.5 points per game. Over the last 5 games, he's putting up over 50 points a game. I mean, these are numbers we haven't seen, numbers that are nearly unprecedented in NBA history right now from James Harden.
Well, maybe we should just stay off the air because this man has been nothing but pure greatness, in my opinion. He has, like you said, 43 points per game since we've been off air. Last night, erupted for 61 of them things, and no one can stop him in the league right now. And I think the thing that is working for him the best is that he's getting to the line, which is what he does. But now he's getting to the line, and he's hot when he has the ball, just in a half-court offense. So now you have that twofold thing going on for him. He's unstoppable.
It's crazy. You keep looking at the scoring numbers and everything, comparing it back to guys like Wilt Chamberlain and guys like Kobe Bryant during those 2 seasons that Kobe really had it going there. And these are really numbers that we haven't seen very often in the league. Right now, he's putting up 36 points a game. I don't even think he was averaging 30 points a game 2 months ago. And like I said, he's averaged 43 points a game to increase his average that much, all the way up to 36 points a game. And really, no one else is out there doing it for the Rockets right now. So if it wasn't him, I don't know if the Rockets would be in the same position they've been doing since Chris Paul got injured.
Oh, absolutely not. I'll tell you that myself. They would not be in this position, bro. Since he is going off like this, they're right in the middle of a playoff race, and they look to stay right there when Chris Paul comes back. And hopefully when Chris Paul comes back, he'll only add to this fuel that James Harden has on the court. But I don't know. I'm really curious to see if Harden can keep up his play, having to share the ball with Chris Paul. In the past, they haven't really had any problems with sharing the ball, but I'm just curious to see, will he still be this hot? Most likely, I would say no, but, you never know.
Well, Perry, when do you think fatigue starts to set in? Because he's been keeping up this scoring output for nearly 2 months now. And you got to think, even back when Kobe, when he had that 06-07 season, when he was dropping 81, when he was dropping 61 3/4, fatigue started to set in a little bit by the end of the year. When does fatigue set in for Harden to where he's not averaging 40? I don't know if he's going to be averaging 43 points a game for the rest of the season, because that's something really hard to do. Or even in his last 5 games from now, he's averaging 51. That's going to be very hard to keep up. When does fatigue start to set in for James Harden?
I would say we should not see too much more of this after the All-Star break. I think after the All-Star break, or going into the All-Star break, you're going to kind of relax a little bit. He's definitely going to be an All-Star. He's going to kind of change his focus to have some fun.
It's going to be a much-needed break for him.
Exactly. And then most likely, like I said earlier, he's probably going to have Chris Paul coming back. So the game plan is going to change a little bit. But I think that when he comes back from the All-Star break, you're going to look to see more resting, just because they'll probably, like I said, be in the middle of a playoff race. So he's on fire right now, and they're not going to want to use him that much going into the postseason. So that's what I would say. Probably after All-Star break, you shouldn't see too much more of this.
And it's amazing that he's being able to do this, but while being so efficient at the same time. Because like you said, he's getting to the line at numbers that we haven't seen before. He's shooting great from the field. He's shooting great from the free throw line. Albeit I don't know if all these times he's getting to the line is is I don't know. I just feel like the refs are favoring him a little bit sometimes. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the greatest players, they know how to get to the line, and that's just that. I think that Michael Jordan, he would study the referees and where their positioning was, just like Kobe Bryant would too. And I think that James Harden has begun to do the same thing because he's seeing the referee's right here. So if he sees the defender's arm right there, I can go ahead and get that foul.
Mm-hmm. And you think he knows how to get those favorable calls from the refs like that?
Yes, exactly. And I think the last few years they have focused on protecting the shooter as well from downtown whenever they're shooting. And I think James Harden's just taking advantage of all of this because if he can flop his arms a little bit, he's going to get that call just because that's what the emphasis is for referees in today's game.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, like I said, I don't think we can overstate this enough that when we were going, the last podcast we did, the last show we did, the Rockets were literally 14th in the Western Conference. A lot of teams were close, but they were literally 14th. He has got them all the way to 5th place. 2 games out of the 3 seed right now of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then obviously the Nuggets and the Warriors right now are pretty even there at 1 and 2, but he has absolutely led his team. I'll leave the James Harden conversation off on one last stat from him, and that's that right now he's averaging over 36 points a game. Only 3 players in NBA history right now have averaged over 36 points a game. That's Michael Jordan for 1 season, Wilt Chamberlain for 6 seasons, and now James Harden for 1 season, if he can keep this up. So 36 points a game, this is not something that we see very often. And this is exactly what James Harden's doing right now at over the midway point of the season right now.
I got him finishing with 32 points per game.
I think he's going to drop off quite a bit,
especially when Chris Paul comes back. I think he'll drop off.
I don't even know when is Chris Paul supposed to go back. I haven't heard any news like he's supposed to be coming back in the next couple weeks or anything.
They have been very careful with how he's healing that hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, whenever he comes back, he's not putting too much on himself. Hopefully he comes in, just try to ease his way back into the offense. But
do you want him to come back very soon? Because it's like I said, when he was playing, they were sitting at 14th. I know you said how are they going to mesh when they get back. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be an amazing thing to the team. Obviously, the addition of Chris Paul is always going to help. It might take a little bit of weight off James Harden's shoulders, but they've been playing so well with him doing these outbursts every single night that I think it might take a little bit of an adjustment period once he gets back again because he's not going to be able to do the same things he does every night.
Well, I think that whenever the All-Star break comes, usually teams have played about 50 games, and there's usually about 25 games left, usually for most teams. So I think if Chris Paul can get into some sort of groove and where he can kind of get his footing back, get into basketball shape, because there's no way to get into basketball shape unless you're in the game.
Yeah.
So if he can get into that groove, not really taking control of the offense, still allow James Harden to do what he does, but if he can kind of just get some reps in, that would be great, especially in the postseason, because we know how great Chris Paul is in the postseason. So I think if they can find a way to mesh these guys back together, but have James Harden still in the driver's seat, no question, I think that this team could scare some people in the playoffs.
Is Harden your MVP right now?
No.
No?
He's not.
Who is it?
I still got Giannis.
I think Giannis is still leading in most people's opinion right now.
I think just because of that one stat where the MVP usually goes to the first or second seed. Mm-hmm. And there's two other times where it has went to someone else, and that was Russell Westbrook, triple-double season, the first one. And then Michael Jordan's, I believe, the rookie season, his first or second season. So
yeah, the one where he averaged 37 a game.
Yeah. So I would say I would still give it to Giannis just because he's leading his team. And I don't think anybody really had these guys, the Bucks, being in the first seed right now.
Well, especially sitting at 34-12.
Right. And they could fall out there right there with the Raptors. But I still would probably give it to Giannis because he's having a monster season himself. And when they went against each other, the Bucks and the Rockets, Giannis came out with the victory. So I'm just going to have to give it to the person who has the bragging rights.
Mm-hmm. Now, how impressive is that for Giannis to be leading the Bucks to the 1 seed, especially when before the season started we were talking, Giannis is probably one of the front runners for MVP, but we still expect the top seeds to look like Celtics,
Right.
Raptors, Sixers, then maybe Bucks,
Right.
or maybe Pacers. We were expecting the Bucks to be 4 or 5 seed. How impressive is that for Giannis to be leading to the Bucks to the 1 seed and kind of the 1 seed by a lot right now if you really look at the wins and losses.
And it's unbelievably impressive just because of the fashion in which he's doing it in. You know, he really doesn't need too much as far in offense. It's more of just to get the heck out the way. I'm just going to dunk it. But the addition of Brook Lopez to the team has been great for this team just because he's able to spread the floor as a big. He's kind of physical on the defensive side of the ball, and I think he can give bigs problems. But having another shooter, especially your big men, to go along with Giannis's offense, I think that this really propels the Milwaukee Bucks to be one of the front runners to come out of the East. Now, I still do not think that this team is coming out of the East. I think that they could finish with the number 1 seed, though. But I think that they will be able to make it to the conference finals if they're able to ride this wave.
So is your preseason pick still intact for making it out of the East?
I would still say the Celtics.
Even though they struggled about a week ago, they're doing a little better now. But you'd still say the Celtics over the Bucks at this point?
I would still say the Celtics just because they got that one man named Kyrie Irving, and he knows how to get a bucket better than almost anybody in the league. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick with my pick. Of course, I got to be a man of my word too. So I'm gonna stick with my pick with the Celtics and the Warriors in the finals.
Now back to the Bucks for a little bit. What are some of the keys do you think to the Bucks' success this season besides Giannis being on the team and then besides Brook Lopez as well?
Well, that makes me think back to the game where it was the Warriors versus the Bucks, and I remember I gave you my pick. I was like, I got the Warriors there at home. They're probably gonna win this. The Bucks, that's the night that the Bucks became legit to me. Is that
They slaughtered them.
They destroyed them, dismantled them.
I remember I told you I was like I probably got the Warriors, but like at the same time, the Bucks, for some odd reason, they always do very well against the Golden State Warriors. You'd think that like KD would be able to match up pretty well against Giannis, and you think like the matchups would work out in the Warriors' favor, but for some reason, like I think the Bucks were the team that broke the Warriors' big streak to start the season a couple years ago when they had like 22 wins in a row.
Yeah.
And then they beat them the next game that season as well. And then they beat them once last year too. So it seems like the Bucks usually do well against the Warriors when they play them.
I do think they kind of have their number in the regular season. I don't know about if they were to meet in the finals. I don't think
trust
so.
them in the finals.
But the Bucks' length on defense is great, and I think that really gives the Warriors problems. When they're running their offense. I think, of course, you got Giannis. You got Brook Lopez, Eric Bledsoe. He's a crafty defender. Then you got Middleton. He's got long arms as well. I just think their length is really, really disrupting the Warriors whenever they play them. So I would say that the Bucks need to continue to focus on their defense. Number 2, keep giving Giannis the ball and get the heck out the way because he's going to get you a bucket. The most dunks I've ever seen in one season, me literally seeing it, I'm just like, man, this guy can't be stopped. And then I would probably say it's important for them to continue to have everybody play their role. I think Giannis is definitely going to be a star each and every single night. But then it's going to come down to the other guys playing their role, such as Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton. Because Chris Middleton, I think last season, his name was in the conversation for being an all-star reserve because he was playing so well.
I was really advocating. I was like, give it to him or Kemba, one of the two.
Somebody, but the Bucks really have guys that they really get after it defensively. I think the addition of George Hill is important to have a veteran in the locker room. You know, he did miss that free throw in last year's finals. Let's not forget. I didn't forget Mr. Hill. But I think that, having him in the locker room will help Giannis. Having Brook Lopez will help stretch the floor. And then everybody just play their role. I think this team could really scare some teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think something that can't be overlooked enough, overstated enough for the Bucks, and something that we talk about a lot is experience of guys playing together and then adding veterans onto that team. You mentioned guys like Brook Lopez and George Hill being on the team, but a lot of these core guys, like Giannis, like Chris Middleton, like Malcolm Brogdon, they have spent a few years together playing now. Right. And then you add additions like Eric Bledsoe last season, you add George Hill this season, you add Brook Lopez this season. You're not adding a bunch of mixed personalities to your team. You're adding a bunch of guys that know their role. They play their role very well. And then they also fit into the needs of your team. Right. George Hill, very good defensive player. Defense is something they needed to improve on. Brook Lopez, also another long, tall guy. obviously they've formed a lot of their team around long, tall guys like Giannis and Thon Maker, all those other guys. Right. So adding Brook Lopez is going to easily fit into the system well, and I think that's another thing that has worked out very well in the Bucks' favor so far.
I would definitely agree with that, but still, I don't see them beating the Celtics. I don't see them beating the Raptors. I think the Raptors, they're almost kind of like playoff solidified to me, the Raptors are. Mm-hmm. I don't know they're final solidified like I think the Celtics are, but I don't think that the Bucks are there yet. I think they have one more Golden State season in them where they're kind of on the up and coming. We saw when Golden State was coming up, they went against the Spurs, and, they got eliminated. They went against the Nuggets, I believe, one year, and they got eliminated. I think they still have a couple more of those learning years before they're legit. But that game against Golden State, they showed me that they were a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know
especially that they could do it in the future too. Right. You saw a young Bucks core do it right now. Just in a couple years, something pretty insane could happen with the Bucks, and they could really blossom into a full team. You mentioned the Warriors. Let's talk about the Warriors a little bit because over break, a lot of things went down for them. They hit some lows, and they also hit some very high highs, which they're at right now with 8 straight wins. And Boogie Cousins, who just came back last Friday, and Perry, he's looked pretty dang good in his first week back, in my opinion.
He looks fantastic off of an Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. I think the only other player that's had a better return off an Achilles injury was Dominique Wilkins. I think he had like 32 points in 32 minutes, which was pretty good. Kobe Bryant, he didn't play too well. He was also a little bit older, but he didn't play too well.
A lot of bit older.
And he didn't play too well, but Boogie, we saw a dunk. He looks like he's fitting really well into the offense. I was really surprised, and I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised whenever he was bringing the ball up and everybody was just kind of getting to their spots. And I thought that was really interesting and dynamic about this team is that they really have a guy that can come up and pull up like that, the true third splash brother. And, Boogie, I think that, like I was telling everybody, I get that he's a star. I don't know if it's going to work just because you can't just say it's going to work automatically. We're adding another all-star because everybody needs the ball. And I think that still has to be shown over the course of the rest of the season. But so far, because that's all we can go off of, these last couple of games, he's played fantastic to me, and I think he fits really well with these other guys.
It's only been 2 games, and it's like in that first game back, I watched most of it, and I was just so impressed by the fact that, like you said, he was able to fit into the offense so well. He was literally bringing the ball up the floor at times, right. And he only played for 15 minutes because he fouled out in the game.
Right.
He's still making those same mistakes that he used to make in terms of fouling a lot. I'm surprised he didn't get a technical in that first game too. But obviously the passion's still there. The play's still there. It's going to take a little bit of time for him to develop into that player he was last season, into the player that he's been. But I think in the limited minutes that we've seen him out on the court, I think it's obviously an amazing addition for the Warriors, something that everyone had known coming into the season. Like, you still got DeMarcus Cousins coming back in January, February. Still got now he's back, and he's looking honestly better than I thought he'd look in his first couple games back already. So I think it's going to be definitely something scary to see come in a couple months from now.
And I think, and coincidentally, I think his personality is what's really helping him. I think being in the locker room this whole entire season, being able to be around these guys, have fun with them. But I think also DeMarcus is a student of the game, so he's probably watching them. He's been at most of the games that they've had, and he's been out there watching, seeing where guys like to catch the ball.
Yeah, where they like to be.
Exactly, seeing everybody's spot. So I think DeMarcus has done really well. He's done his part in order to fit in. I think it's just something that has to be seen, and so far it looks so good.
And he hasn't slowed him down at all because it was like that game, I think it was on a Monday or Tuesday, they played the Nuggets before DeMarcus came back, and it was like, oh, here we go, the top 2 teams in the West. These are going to be the 1 and 2 seeds. Are the Nuggets finally going to do it? And no, they lost by like 35. And then you're like, oh, crap, this DeMarcus Cousins is coming back in 3 days. And then, I was kind of hoping like, oh, maybe they're going to play a little worse. No, they're playing even better with him back. And then obviously they've won the last 2 games. They've won 8 straight. And I don't know if it's going to be slowing down anytime soon right now. They do have a big game coming up, it looks like, on Saturday against the Celtics. That'll be a big game for them just to see, because they're both kind of on little winning streaks right now. The Celtics on 5, the Warriors on 8. I'd like to see how the Celtics match up in that game because everyone knows that could be a preview of the NBA Finals this season. So I'd like to see a little bit more out of the Celtics. I know it looks like Kyrie almost might be getting a little bit tired of the team right now, calling up LeBron. I'd like to see more out of Jason Tatum on the Celtics right now. I still have a lot of questions with the Celtics, so I think that game's going to be something I'm definitely going to be tuning into on Saturday.
I think for one game, I think the Celtics are fine. I think it's over the course of the seasons where the questions come up. Will guys get tired of each other, like you said with Kyrie? He's getting tired of the young guys and, trying to fit in Gordon Hayward still because they're still trying to ease him back from his horrific injury from last season. But back to the Warriors, I think this is the perfect time for Boogie to come back just because Klay Thompson's hot now. Mm-hmm. And he was struggling at the beginning of the season. But I always thought that, he would catch his groove, of course, because shooters shoot. That's what the kids like to say now.
All these guys are really doing better ever since we quit the podcast and went on Christmas break. All these guys have been really just going off lately.
Sometimes that's all you need to do. Sometimes you just need to stop talking and start watching a little bit, and everything will get better. And that's what it seems to look like for a lot of guys in the NBA. And that's bad news for a lot of teams in the NBA. For the Warriors are looking a lot better because that's what it looks like. But this matchup on Saturday, I'm definitely going to be watching it. Warriors Celtics, like you said. Preview of the finals, hopefully. That's my picks. I think it'll be a good matchup. Last year, we saw the Warriors and Celtics. We saw a great duel between Kyrie and Curry. I think we could see a little bit more of that. And I just like seeing guys like Tatum go at Durant, let him know that I'm in the league now. I get that you've already solidified your spot. Let me show you what I can do. And then, of course, we got Boogie. So I just think it's a all-around great matchup. It's definitely a TV game for sure. For
sure, man. And now one team that's kind of going in the other direction of those two right now, and I think probably one of the biggest things that happened over break, in my opinion, over Christmas break, was on Christmas Day when LeBron James strained his left groin. And now he's been out ever since then. Now I think he's approaching his 16th or 17th game being out in a row, and it's been very detrimental to him because I believe they were 4th or 5th when he got injured. They've slid all the way down to 9th, and now it's looking like it's going to be pretty tight there for the Lakers to possibly make it in to the playoffs here, and now as we approach the second half of the season. So they'll play the Timberwolves tonight. I don't think LeBron's planning on coming back tonight. Yeah. So it's still going to be at least a few more games before he comes back. But what do you think of the whole situation, Perry? The whole injury and now the Lakers struggling since he's been out.
I think that it's smart just because at the end of the day, I think they understand that this season they're most likely not going to win a title. That's just the odds. Mm-hmm. I would say that.
I don't think anyone really thought
exactly, but you do want to have a good season. This would be a weird playoffs without LeBron, the first one, and I don't know how long, let alone the finals.
I think they're still making it.
I think they'll make it. I think it'll be tough. I think it might come down to that last game, just like how it was with the Timberwolves.
Especially if he's out any longer.
Exactly.
Because it's like the longer he stays out, the longer they're going to fall, especially when you see the teams behind him. Or especially when you see the teams behind the Lakers right now like doing better recently.
Like the Kings?
Well, the Kings aren't necessarily doing better recently.
We're better than the Lakers, man.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Without LeBron, the Lakers still got a better record.
Whoa. Relax. But, Rich Paul, his agent, said that they're going to take their time with his injury. I was listening to a show the other day, and it was like, usually for this injury to strain groin is usually 4 to 6 weeks. And I believe a couple of days ago was actually the 4-week mark.
Yeah. So tomorrow's the 4-week mark.
So they're right on point with where they're supposed to be with this injury, and they're really taking their time with it because the groin is something serious. If you re-aggravate it, it'll be worse, and that's the last thing that the Lakers want, especially if they're trying to lure in free agents at the end of this season. You kind of want to have a good season, so I think it's okay to have this little slide back. Like you said, I would still have the Lakers finishing in the playoffs, maybe a 6 or 7 seed, but it's just part of it. It's part of being in the wild, wild west.
Yeah, it's like something, too, with LeBron's age. Do you really want to rush him back at this point when he's got this injury in a season that's almost going to be a lost season anyway, where I don't think many people expected them to even make it to the conference finals, let alone the NBA finals a couple weeks ago? And now it's like with LeBron's age, you don't want to – at the same time, you don't want to be wasting – another season of LeBron being great, of LeBron's prime, but you also know that they're not going to really do much this year, so why rush him back from that injury?
And I also think that this is also a blessing in disguise for the Lakers, just because, LeBron, one of the smartest basketball players to ever play the game, of course, and he's teaching these guys like Kuzma, Ball, Ingram, all these guys, all the tricks that he's learned over his 16 years. And I think that this is a perfect time for Kuzma to take everything he's learned and put it to work. He had 41 against the Pistons. Last week against the Thunder, I think he had like 29, and he had a great game. But I just think that, he's just really in a groove now. So then when LeBron comes back, he really does have that second guy he can give the ball to. I think at first you're kind of hesitant just because you're playing with LeBron James. But now you kind of come into your own, and I think that's what Kuzma has done. I think that's what everybody has done, especially Zubac, too, off the bench. He's been playing really well.
I know. Well, I think you went to that Oklahoma City Thunder and Lakers game last week, and you were like, I was like, yeah, good luck with the Lakers on that one, buddy. And you were like, well, let's see if Zubac has another big game. And Zubac did. He had a great game that game, and obviously the Lakers came up with the victory in overtime. That game, in my opinion, it was a little more of the Russell Westbrook mistakes down the end that really cost the Thunder. But I don't know. Maybe you saw it differently, Perry.
I think, shoot. In order to get out of a slump, you have to keep shooting. Mm-hmm. And I think it might be different in this case. Doing. I think he needed to probably take a break in this game because Paul George, he was doing pretty good. And, it didn't really seem like he shot that many shots, Westbrook. But then I looked at my phone. I was like, let me see how many shots he shot. I looked at my phone. I think he was like 7 for 31. Yeah. I was like, whoa, yeah. So he needed to calm down a little bit. But at the same time, from your star, that's what you want, especially in a heated game like that. You want him to take shots, especially if Paul George is probably getting covered by Kuzma. I think Kuzma was face guarding him. So it was up to Westbrook to either take the shot or kick it to somebody else. But, it was just part of the game. It was a great game. They went to overtime, like you said. Zubac, he played really good in overtime. He really plays his role pretty good. He was getting a couple.
I couldn't watch overtime. I watched the whole game. I was looking for you on TV, and I couldn't watch overtime. But I did see they still came out with the victory.
It was a great game to go to.
How was the experience? Was it great, good arena and everything?
My first regular season game. I've been in a couple of preseason games, so it was definitely a different atmosphere. But I was like, wow, the whole time I was there, I was like, man, this is so cool. I need to come to these all the time. I'm leaving Kansas City. Right. I need a basketball team. I was wearing a Kobe Bryant jersey, and after the game, because the Lakers won after the game, people with Lakers shirts on were high-fiving me. They was like, yeah. I was like, I just like Kobe. That's it. But they were just – it was
Were you
just
cheering
fun.
For one specific team over another?
No, I was just appreciating.
Just went there to have a good time?
Yeah, just appreciate good basketball.
Did you spend like $12 on a nacho or anything?
$11 on wings and fries. Really good.
That's not bad, then.
Really good.
Yeah, as long as they're good. I ain't spending $11 on some cold wings.
Oh, absolutely not. I would take it back.
I'm glad you had a good time there. And you saw Chris Webber, too. Is that correct?
Met him, man. Met him. It was funny because I was at halftime. They were leaving, kind of go take a break. I'm like, man, that's Chris Webber right there. I'm like, man. I took a video of him. And then me and my friends, we wanted to take a picture by the court. So I asked the lady, I was like, hey, it's okay if we take a picture. I didn't want her to beat me up.
Yeah, that's what I did at the Bulls game. I was like, hey, is it all right if we just go down there and take a picture?
Exactly. That's what I did. And she was like, yeah, of course. But you can actually go on the court after the game if you want to. I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, they didn't let me do that.
So she told me, and we went over there. We left a little bit before overtime ended just because the Lakers had won that game. Mm-hmm. And
they won by like 10, didn't they?
Yeah, they pulled away at the end. So we left, and we went down to the court, and Chris Webber, he's packing up his stuff, and he's about to leave. And so me and my friends, we're about to take the picture. I'm like, guys, I got to go take a picture with him. I'm sorry, y'all. Forget y'all. So now I went to go take a picture of him. I was like, hey, Mr. Webber, like, can I take a picture with you today, man? He was like, of course, young man. So then we took a picture, and I was like, man, this is cool. Now, I wish I would have said, have you smiled today? I forgot, man. But,
oh, my God.
Maybe next time. I was kind of starstruck because he's one of my favorite color commentary people. So
yeah, he's not mine, but, I'll give it to you.
He's funny to me, and he finds a way.
I like Chris more than Reggie Miller. I think Reggie Miller's the worst of the NBA color commentators.
Hey man, we don't need to be talking about people like that.
I like Chris better though,
Hey,
but I do Reggie Miller's one of my favorite players to watch. Like watch old highlights and watch old videos of Reggie Miller. But I'm not the biggest fan of his color commentary.
Everybody likes who they like, but it was crazy to me come home. And
that man's big as hell next to you too. He's like double the size of you.
About 7 foot. He had to slouch down.
That's crazy.
Slouch down to take a picture with me. But it was
like a giant.
It's crazy because I'm playing 2K when I got home. Like, man, that's him. I talked to that guy. And it's cool. And I'm like, man, these people are like really humans just like us.
Mm-hmm.
Just
they got jobs to do and everything.
Exactly. So, but I tell you what was not cool to me is that when Chris Webber was leaving, there was a fan. And it was like, hey, Chris Webber. And then Chris Webber looked up, and the fan gave him the timeout signal.
Oh, no.
I was like, man, you don't have to be like that. That's so sad to me.
Oh, my God.
But, people are crazy.
He just kept walking?
He just kind of put his head down. And that's so sad to me that people treat him like that. I'm like.
Yeah, that sucks. He's been living that down the rest of his life.
Hey.
That's horrible.
People are cruel. That's why, when you have the opportunity, you got to do what's right. And that's me. Just saying I appreciate what you do, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you got to meet Chris Webber. Glad you went to the game. Great story. I'm sure we'll be talking about this on the Droppin Dimes show, which we're actually going to go to right now. So we're going to cut the podcast off. This is part 1 of this week's Droppin Dimes podcast. Part 2 will be released at the beginning of next week. But that's it for the Droppin Dimes podcast today. Make sure to tune in to the Droppin Dimes show on KZLX from 4 to 6 on Thursdays. That's everything for this one. For Perry Randle, I'm Noah Cooper, and we out.